Hello, everyone. Hope everyone is doing well today. Just wanted to reach out and just thank everyone who's been sending, messages. Harmony and I have received dozens of messages encouraging us and supporting us in the ministry that we do, the ministry of spiritual warfare. And I have received many messages from others out there who have been doing this. And my hat off to you. Because I know how hard it is, and that's why I think this forum is great to fellowship, to connect, because there's so many of us that are actually doing this outside the church. It's not something, like I said in the interview. It's not something I wanted to do outside the church, but it seems that that's where God is leading this type of ministry. For whatever reason, it is not being done by the pastors, I would say, of the evangelical church. I know this firsthand. I've spoken with many of them and really have been dismissed by many of them because it's not something they want to bring into their building. This really puts it on a different playing field. We go to church and, we hear those uplifting messages and, we go to worship, we glorify Christ, and, we're called to go to worship and meet other believers. But there are things happening to people outside the four walls of the church. And this is where, we really have to get real. It's not all happy endings that we like to see in the Christian movies or we read about. There is a very tough life out there. The world is tough. There is evil outside the church. And, this is not something that has not been around since the beginning of time. The good, the evil, God, the devil, this has been going on before the foundations of the world. And we are in the middle of it. There's no getting away from it. Whether you're a believer, a non-believer, it doesn't protect you not to believe in this, because what's true is true, right? So it doesn't matter if you choose not to believe in the truth. It doesn't protect you. It's still there. And this war is still there around us. And I firmly believe that God is calling and raising up men and women, couples, to go out there and intercede for people who are hurting, who can't get help from the church. It's very, very important. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start doing this podcast, and I hope you'll join me. I've received, instructions from other podcasters. Make sure your lighting is good. Make sure you have a thumbnail. You have great editing and music. I'm going to tell you, I don't have any of that. I don't have a producer. I don't have money to invest in this. And I don't think that's what this is about. I think what's important is the content, the information, the fellowship, the credibility. And I think that, we can really come together in this podcast, from you as well, the comments, and what you would like to talk about. And I think we can start to really maybe equip each other. I'll offer everything I have. And that's what, a big reason why I wrote the book is, I didn't know how it was going to go when I started writing it. I've been asked to write a book for years. And I sat down many times and I said, I don't want to write about these stories. I don't want to write about the events that I experienced in these cases. There's plenty of books out there with that. And then as this journey continued, and I came across many people, not people suffering, not believers, but in different aspects of where this ministry was taking us, something started to stir. And, I think I reached a boiling point that this needs to go out. This message needs to come out, right? And I knew there were other people like us, that God had equipped through their life to join this battle. Because, the title was no mistake, Called into Darkness. There's many people who say, we're called into the light, right? But really, we're brought into the light and called back out into the darkness, that dark world, the unbelieving world. the unsaved world, right? We're called to go seek and save the lost, just like Jesus said. So that's what, I believe we need to do. And in this book, I outlined through a story. I didn't want to create a book on formal teaching. I didn't want to do that. And what I decided to do was write a story. And those who bought the book and read it, I thank you very much, because it really is a special feeling when someone reads your thoughts and your life, and it's an honor, and I thank you for that. So what I tried to do was put two stories running parallel, where we had the story of Harmony and I, our testimony, how we met, how God equipped us, and at the same time, one of the big cases that we did. And inside that aspect of the story as well, I did add how I investigated, what brought me to certain conclusions on cases, what I did, on a phone call, what I did on a scene. And I talked about other cases. I gave other examples of cases. And so when this book finished, I'm going to tell you, it was very emotional time. I didn't plan on reliving my past. Many of us here have a past, right? I think everybody has a story. Everybody's gone through something. And I didn't plan on reliving it. And I'm somebody who never really gets sick. I'll get a cold once a year, that change of season. But during this, I started getting very sick. And we didn't know what it was. I started getting a pain in my head, that was painful to the touch. And then it was going down my left side to my shoulder, then my chest, and it was sore. And, I thought maybe it was from lifting weights. Maybe I pulled a muscle. But what it turned out, when I looked later on, I started seeing a rash develop. We went to a doctor, and it was shingles. And the doctor, diagnosed it as stress. And it made a lot of sense to me, because it was a very emotional time. So what happened with this book is that people started to, see their own stories in this book, things that happened to them and how God was carrying them through. And people were, it was great. It was encouraging that people were saying, I'm understanding what I should be doing in ministry now. Maybe not this ministry, but a certain ministry where God has placed me. And the other aspect was people who wanted to get involved in spiritual warfare, people who wanted to join this battle. The first thing I had people do, and some of you listening, you probably reached out to me and I said the same to you. Read the book. Read the book, then get back to me. And if you still want to move forward, then we'll talk and we'll figure out how to do this. And the reason I say that is because, it's like it's said in the church, and, pastors like to say it, believers like to say it, is that when you become a Christian, you have a target on your back, right? Let me tell you something. When you join this ministry, and I'm sure many of you know, you have a target on your back. And not just you, your family, your wife, your children, and it's very, very real. It's tangible. And I want people to be prepared. I want people to count the cost of what they're going to get into. And I've had actually more than one person get back to me already and say, thank you for recommending this, because I'm going to wait. I'm going to pray on it. I'm going to see where the Lord directs me. And the first piece of advice I will give, if this is a curiosity that you feel that, maybe I want to see if I can do this, then don't do it. I never wanted to do this. It wasn't something that I said, I have an interest in. I think this is cool. This is something I was thrown into, and it's all in the book. And I believe I talk about it in the interview. I never watch my interviews, by the way, so I don't remember what I said in the CBN interview. I never, ever watch a replay of my interview, because I'll probably never do another one again, right? Nobody likes the way they look or what they sound, and they're their hardest critic, right? So anyway, and really, if you don't like the book, I think it's a 30-day return policy. Return the book. Anybody who's written a book here knows you're not getting rich off books. You don't write them for that reason. And so anyway, I wrote this book because it makes my life easier. Because over the years, honestly, I received over a few thousand calls. And many times people would ask, well, what do you do? What are you about? What side, what denomination are you from? How do you do this? And it's, there's not that much time in a day, especially when you have a wife and 4 kids. So this book was was the way to knock that wall down there. And, when people are serious and they know this is what I want to get into, then we hit it. I have 3 or 4 lesson plans that I used to teach that I will share. I'm not going to charge. I'm going to help equip people. Fellowship. This is part of being a believer, is coming together, is fellowshipping. I love it. Making new friends. We're all in one mind and one spirit, right? So, to those who want to join this battle, to those who want to hear more about what's really going on out there, these cases, they'll blow your mind. You may hear certain stories. You may see Hollywood. It's not as animated as that, I will tell you. There are times. But what's out there is scarier than Hollywood. There's an instance in the book with Harmony, and I'll just give you a little, I'll give it away, where she's interviewing one of our people we're helping, and he changes in the middle of the interview out of nowhere when she mentions the church. And, she was left alone. And, again, I talked about in the book, that was a failure on my part because I was investigating another room. But that's scary. That is real. That is, that'll change you. And I'm going to have Harmony on here eventually too. She works a lot. But that's changed her, that event. So, we're going to talk. We're going to get into this. I want to do a podcast where we're getting down to it. We're talking about the things that are not being talked about in the church, the things that we all know that are happening, how we're going to deal with it, what's going on out there. And I hope you'll join me. Because you know what? I think that this will really be beneficial to the listeners. And of course, it's going to be beneficial to those who are hurting outside the church. Because you and I know there's thousands and thousands of people suffering. The calls that come in are just heartbreaking. Children, when I hear a child being attacked, forget about it. It's all hands on deck and we got to go. It's a child. And when I hear that my church couldn't help me, the pastors didn't believe me, as far as the Catholic Church, they're busy. Maybe they couldn't take it because they're overwhelmed with calls themselves. This is where we step in. And I will say this, I just thought of something. This is not going to be a podcast where we attack any denomination. I'm not doing it. Okay, I know there's a huge difference. I've studied, mostly every denomination, and I know. And I was on each. I was in the faith. I went to church on, as brought up as a Catholic. Okay, I was saved in a Pentecostal church. Okay, and I was there for many, many, many years. And the attacks on each other really are just ridiculous. We're supposed to be coming together in Christ. And this is going to be a podcast that if you're a believer in Christ, if that is your foundation, right, is Jesus and Jesus alone, then this is the place you want to be. Because I'm not going to talk about, I'm not going to get into theology. Okay, I'm not going to get into that in this podcast. I'm not going to do that because that is going to divert from what we're trying to accomplish here. And it's equipping soldiers to go outside the four walls of the church, right? And help people suffering from diabolical attacks because it's happening. There's infestation, there's oppression, there's obsession, and there's possession going on. And we're going to cover all of these topics in depth. I have some teaching that I guarantee that some of you have never heard before. I guarantee it. When I get into the law of invitation, the intentional invitation, the unintentional invitation, and talk about the different ways this happens, I've taught this before to many, many Christians, and they've never heard this teaching. And it's all biblical. We're going to go over the biblical aspects of it. So thank you, everybody. And, I will say one thing. Harmony, my wife loves to read the comments, and I don't read any comments either. But she did read something about somebody talked about my heavy accent. And I apologize. This is how I talk from New York. I worked in the city as a paramedic since the 90s, then as a NYPD police officer for 20 years. And I can't shake it. So again, thank you for joining. I can't wait to meet everyone. I can't wait to really see where this podcast goes. So I hope you have a great day, and God bless every one of you.